Long ago, in the ancient city of Nineveh, a city rich with culture but steeped in idol worship, the people had turned away from the teachings of the one true God. They followed false gods, made of stone and wood, crafted by their own hands. The city, though prosperous, was engulfed in spiritual darkness, far removed from the path of righteousness. To guide them back to the truth, God chose Yunus, a man of unwavering faith and a pure heart, to be his messenger. Yunus was sent to Nineveh with a divine message: abandon the worship of idols and turn to the worship of the one true God, the creator of all things. He was tasked with calling the people to repentance, to turn away from their sinful ways and embrace a life of virtue and obedience to God's commands. Day after day, Yunus walked through the streets of Nineveh, speaking to the people with compassion and sincerity. He warned them of the consequences of their actions, urging them to forsake their false gods and return to the worship of the Almighty. But the people of Nineveh were stubborn. They mocked Yunus, rejecting his message and clinging to their idols. They were blind to the truth, lost in their traditions and customs, unwilling to change. The despair of Yunus. As time passed, Yunus grew increasingly frustrated and disheartened. He had devoted himself to his mission, pouring his heart into guiding the people of Nineveh. Yet, they remained steadfast in their disbelief. Despite his best efforts, the people continued to ignore his warnings and persisted in their sinful ways. Overcome with despair, Yunus felt as though he had failed in his mission. He could not understand why the people were so resistant to the truth, why they refused to heed the message that could save them. In his anguish, Yunus made a decision that would lead him on a journey of self-discovery and spiritual growth. Without waiting for a command from God, Yunus decided to leave Nineveh. He believed that his efforts were in vain, and that perhaps, in another land, he might find people more willing to listen to the message of God. With a heavy heart, he departed from the city, leaving behind the people he had tried so hard to save. Yunus boarded a ship, hoping to escape the pain of his perceived failure. But as the ship set sail, the calm seas quickly turned turbulent. A great storm arose, and the waves crashed violently against the ship, threatening to tear it apart. The sailors, experienced men of the sea, knew that this was no ordinary storm. They realized that someone on board had incurred the wrath of the divine, and they feared for their lives. In their desperation, the sailors cast lots to determine who among them was the cause of their misfortune. The lot fell on Yunus. The sailors, recognizing that Yunus was a man of God, were reluctant to throw him overboard. But Yunus knew that this storm was a sign from God, a consequence of his decision to abandon his mission. He accepted his fate and instructed the sailors to cast him into the sea. As Yunus was thrown into the raging waters, the storm began to subside, and the seas grew calm once more. But Yunus's ordeal was far from over. God had a plan for Yunus, a plan that would test his faith and teach him a lesson in patience and trust. The whale's belly. As Yunus sank into the depths of the sea, he was swallowed by a great fish, sent by God to keep him safe. Inside the belly of the whale, Yunus found himself in complete darkness, alone with his thoughts. It was a place of reflection, where Yunus could confront his doubts and fears, and where he could seek forgiveness for abandoning his mission. In the belly of the whale, Yunus realized the gravity of his mistake. He understood that he had acted out of despair and impatience, failing to trust in God's wisdom and timing. Overcome with remorse, Yunus turned to God in sincere repentance. From the depths of the whale's belly, he cried out, acknowledging God's greatness and his own shortcomings. "There is no God but you," Yunus prayed. "Glory be to you. I have indeed been among the wrongdoers." His prayer was filled with humility and a deep sense of regret. Yunus knew that only God could save him from his predicament, and he placed his trust entirely in the Almighty. In his infinite mercy and compassion, heard the heartfelt prayer of Yunus. He accepted Yunus's repentance, for God is always ready to forgive those who turn to him with sincere hearts. God commanded the whale to release Yunus, and the whale obeyed, casting Yunus onto the shore. Exhausted and weak, Yunus lay on the shore, his body aching from the trials he had endured. But God, in his mercy, caused a plant to grow beside Yunus, providing him with shade and nourishment. As Yunus recovered, he reflected on the lessons he had learned. He understood now that God's plan is perfect, and that even in moments of despair, one must remain patient and trust in God's wisdom. The repentance of Nineveh. While Yunus was in the belly of the whale, the people of Nineveh had witnessed the signs that Yunus had warned them about. The sky had darkened, and they felt the weight of God's displeasure. Fear gripped their hearts as they realized that Yunus had spoken the truth. They had sinned, and they were now facing the consequences of their disobedience. In their fear, the people of Nineveh turned to God, the one they had previously ignored. They repented sincerely, begging for God's forgiveness. They acknowledged their sins and vowed to change their ways. Men, women, and children alike raised their hands in prayer, seeking God's mercy. God, who is the most forgiving, the most merciful, saw the sincerity in their repentance, and he accepted it. He lifted the punishment that had been hanging over them, sparing them from the destruction they had feared. The skies cleared, and the people of Nineveh were given another chance to live righteously, the return of Yunus. Once Yunus had regained his strength, God called him to return to Nineveh. This time, Yunus returned with a heart full of understanding and compassion. When he arrived, he found that the people of Nineveh had changed. They welcomed him with open arms, eager to learn more about the teachings of God and to live in accordance with his commands. Yunus rejoiced at their transformation, for he saw that his efforts had not been in vain. He stayed among them, guiding them, teaching them, and helping them to stay on the path of righteousness. Under his guidance, the people of Nineveh flourished, and their faith grew stronger each day. The lessons of Yunus's story. The story of Yunus is a powerful reminder of God's infinite mercy and the importance of patience and trust in his plan. It teaches that no matter how far one may stray, God's doors are always open to those who return with humility and faith. Yunus's journey from despair to redemption illustrates the importance of trust in God's wisdom, even when the path seems unclear. This story also serves as a lesson in the power of sincere repentance. The people of Nineveh were forgiven because they turned to God with genuine remorse and a commitment to change. Their story shows that it is never too late to seek God's forgiveness and to turn one's life around. A message for all. The story of Yunus is not just a tale from the past. It is a timeless message for all of humanity. It reminds us that God is always with us, guiding us, even in our darkest moments. It encourages us to trust in his wisdom, to be patient in times of trial, and to never lose hope in his mercy. As you reflect on the story of Yunus, remember that it is a story of hope, redemption, and the boundless mercy of God. No matter what challenges you may face, know that God is always near, ready to guide you and to forgive you when you turn to him with a sincere heart. Trust in his plan, follow his guidance, and live your life in accordance with his commands. For in doing so, you will find peace, fulfillment, and the everlasting mercy of the Almighty.